Today I'm going to talk about the Fujifilm FinePix S5800 camera, another one of my old digital cameras. At the time it was released back in 2007, this was considered a fairly good spec bridge camera. Now you can pick one up easily second hand on eBay for anywhere between £30 and £60. I don't remember why exactly I bought this because I prefer film cameras. It must be 15 years ago now. The S5800 is, as the name suggests, part of the S series of Fujifilm cameras, and it's still a pretty good camera, especially for beginners. I'm not going to go into the camera's functions and technical workings in any depth on this occasion because it's very similar to the S4000. All the buttons, the zoom lever and the shutter all seem to work in the same way, and the text display and most of the settings, capabilities and functionalities are exactly similar with only a few differences. And I've already covered the S4000 in a previous video, which I'll link to in the video description below. Watch that video first if you're not sure how these S series cameras work. I've also included in the video description a link to the camera's manual. You can look at that if you prefer. I'll just summarise here some of the key differences from the S4000. This camera runs on alkaline AA batteries rather than nickel metal hydride. I have mixed feelings about this camera. I've rediscovered something I'd forgotten, which is that it has what's called an intelligent flash, which in practical terms means it has a nasty habit of the flash unit popping up automatically when you're taking a photo in poor light, which seems to happen at the most inopportune moments, and the UI on the LCD display can be difficult to use. I can't seem to set it to a suppressed flash, but I may just need to get used to it. There are plenty of plus points to this camera though. It's a good camera for beginners, as I say. It's also a good camera for street photography because it's nice and compact, and it's got a good spec for a camera of its type and era, and you can take some good pictures with it. The camera also has some interesting exposure mode settings that the S4000 doesn't have. You have a picture stabilization for if you are taking shots at a fast shutter speed. Of particular interest to me is the natural light mode, which allows you to take ambient shots that preserve low light conditions. The natural mode is also interesting because it lets you take two shots in succession, one with flash, the other without. After this trip, I'm definitely going to use this camera a bit more in the future and experiment with some of those and other interesting settings I found in the manual. I went out to Scarborough this time. Unfortunately, it turned out to be very dull weather, very wet and rainy and overcast, but you have to meet these challenges. There was still strong light despite it being overcast, and I set the ISO at 400 initially but found I needed to bring it down and adjust the exposure compensator quite a lot as well, and that's largely I think because I mostly had the aperture at a wide setting of about f4. Shutter speed I always set as standard at 1/250th. I don't like changing that much. Sometimes I'll adjust it to say 320 if in sunny conditions, but I'll rarely change it in the other direction even when, as here, it's pretty overcast. I experimented using the exposure triangle, looking at how I can manipulate aperture and ISO together to get the exposure just right, and as you can see from the photographs you're watching now, I did have to keep making adjustments. It was trial and error, but I persisted until I got it looking okay.